الحمد لله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا إن من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله. All the praise due to Allah. We seek His help and we seek His forgiveness. We seek refuge with Allah from the evils of our souls and from our bad deeds. Whomever Allah guides, no one can misguide. And whomever Allah leads astray, no one can guide. And I bear witness that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is His messenger. Dear brothers and sisters, a quick reminder, we are in the 5th day of Muharram, which is the first month of the new Hijri year. So the year 1435, alhamdulillah, we have completed one Hijri year, and now we are on the 5th day of that month. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the best of fasting after the month of Ramadan is the month of Muharram. So if you can fast as many days as possible from this month, it is, inshallah, will have a great rewards that come with it. Not only that, but also the 10th day of Muharram, which is also known as Ashura, will be on Wednesday, inshallah. And the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever fasts that day, all of their sins up to that point are forgiven. The Prophet ﷺ also recommended that we fast either the day before Ashura or the day after. So if you're planning on fasting that 10th day of Muharram Ashura, which inshallah will fall on Wednesday, you either need to fast Tuesday and Wednesday or Wednesday and Thursday. And scholars also said that if you can do the day before and the day after, that's also preferred. So if you can make it, do Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and inshallah you'll get the ajr for fasting those 3 days, as well as the ajr of Ashura, as the Prophet ﷺ said. Whoever fast a day for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will shield him or distance him from the hellfire 7 years worth of a distance. So inshallah those 3 days will be a shield and a guide for us. Dear brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the Quran as a way to guide our hearts. Gave us the Quran as a way where we can look at it as an instruction manual and know how to do things, know how to live our lives. When you go to IKEA and buy a piece of furniture, or you go to Walmart or any of those places, the first thing we should do, I should say, is when we first open the box, is pull the manual and see how things work, and then put them together before we start, fumbling through the different parts. And this is how we look at the Quran. This is how we look at the Sunnah. A way for us to be able to live our life on this earth, to live, those different or those few years that we have left, if we have years left in our lives. We don't know when we die, so we're assuming that we have years left in our life. And within, those different surah, within those different ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet ﷺ, gave us different privileges, or gave us different, bonuses or extras within those. One of those is Surat al-Kahf, which is surah number 18. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ مَنْ قَرَأَ سُورَةَ الْكَهْفِ يَوْمَ الْجُمْعَةِ أَضَاءَ لَهُ مِنَ النُّورِ مَا بَيْنَ الْجُمْعَتَيْنِ. That whoever reads Surah Al-Kahf on Friday, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have it, or will have a light for him between, the Friday. So from a Friday to a Friday, every time you read Surah Al-Kahf, you will get that light in your heart. And when we think about the light, it's not, the physical light of, you walking with a flashlight at night, getting that distance, or getting that light to make you walk the distance, but rather the light in your heart, the light in your eyes, and the light in your actions. What you really see and what you do is what you will be guided. And then also the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever memorizes the first 10 surahs of, or the first 10 ayat of Surah Al-Kahf, and then in another narration, the last 10, they will be shielded from Dajjal. And with those two things, whether it's lighting your life from a Friday to a Friday, or shielding you from the Dajjal, those kind of by themselves will give us a great honor and a great privilege to just keep reading Surah Al-Kahf. But let's put those two bonuses aside and look at the different stories and the different lessons that we can pull out of Surat al-Kahf. When we look at Surat al-Kahf, and we've talked about Surat al-Mulk before, and why did the Prophet ﷺ, praise Surat al-Mulk, and we went through the lessons, and when we look at Surat al-Kahf and trying to digest what Surat al-Kahf does to us, one of the things that we can realize or we can learn out of these lessons is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts the surah by saying, Alhamdulillah alladhi anzala ala abdihi al-kitaba wa lam yaj'al lahu iwaja. Praise to Allah who gave us this book. Who gave us this book that had no faults in it. So again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us that this is the book that you need. This is the guidance that you need to live by. And then gives us the story, the first story that we go through about in this book, are the people, or in this surah, are the people that had that surah named after them, the people of the cave. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us the story about how these people stayed in the cave for 309 years. And in those 309 years, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected them from all the outside elements, from all the dangers that surrounded them. And the main reason why they went into the cave to begin with was because they were righteous people. And people around them were not ready for it. People around them were not ready for righteous people to be around them. So what they did was, they listened to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They followed what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them, but yet they felt the dangers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected them during that time. And we think about it, and we say, I'm never going to ever go living in a cave for 309 years. How can this even relate to me? How can this even relate to these days? And we forget that we sleep every night. For whether, 5 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours, or we even just go with our daily lives. Us driving in the car. Me driving to work today, I saw on the highway a car that T-boned this other car on the middle of the highway. Now, who would have ever thought that those two people driving to work or driving to wherever they were going to, they would get into that accident? I mean, you look at that accident, you would think somebody must have really been hurt. But what was amazing, subhanAllah, is that both people from both cars were just standing just fine, talking to each other. So there is that protection. There is the protection that when we get sick, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will pull us through this hardship. Will get us through that, that safe passage from being sick. The fear, when we have that fear. So why did we, or how do we go through those things? How do we get that protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It's the same thing that those people of the cave did. They followed His guidance. They followed what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala given them. And then we do the same thing. If we want that protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we have to do the same thing. We need to follow the Quran. We need to follow the Sunnah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala jumps to the other story and talks about the different story throughout throughout the surah, and talks about the person who had this huge garden, beautiful garden, with the river flowing, the trees, the fruits. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything better. That guy literally couldn't ask for anything better. He had it all. But what was he lacking? He lacked faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He lacked that belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and got arrogant enough to where he thought that what he has is because of himself. What he has is because something he was entitled to. Now, how many of us don't have that feeling? I have the job I have because I studied hard. I have the business I have because I have worked so many years to build that business. I am in the position I'm in because I did so much. I have so much wealth because I worked so hard for it. I mean, we always give ourselves that entitlement that I have what I have because of me. And a lot of times we'll say, Ya subhanallah, yes, alhamdulillah, all praise to Allah first but then, I did I have because of me. But we really don't believe that first part of I have what I have because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Last night, we met with, we had a meeting with the St. Joseph orphanage, or the children that they deal with, and they had a group of kids from 16 to 20, 16, 19, or 16 to 20. And you look at the life that these kids went through, the places that these kids, been through, and the situations that they had to go through, you sit back and think, what kind of chance they have in life when they didn't grow up around parents, or if they had parents, their parents were drug dealers. And then we think, well, if I was in their situation, if I was in their shoes, would I really be in the same position that I'm in now? And we lose that element. I mean, at that point, you start reflecting and thinking, well, then maybe I wouldn't. I mean, how many, highly skilled designers and how many skilled, architects that we have out there that really think that they have what they have because of how good they are at their jobs. One of the kids we met last night was a very artistic person. I mean, I was wowed from the things that he did. But he really didn't have the same lifestyle that I did. And I guarantee you, if that person lived the same lifestyle or had the same support from the parents as myself or any of us, he'd probably be, in Harvard, scholarships all over the place. So when we look at this surah, when we look at this example, we may not be too far from this guy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about in this book, in this surah, Surah Al-Kahf. Think about how what we were giving maybe is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have to think about it twice. And then we have to think about how do I give back to the community. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me that blessing, whether it's education, whether it's money, whether it's whatever it is, how can I give back? Forget about giving back. How can I be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what I have? How can I be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the blessings that He has given me? For just having a parent that a lot of those kids out there don't have. How many times have we driven downtown or driven in different parts of town and said, why are those people homeless? They can make something better of their life. Or why is that guy selling drugs? And we become into putting judgment into those people. And little we know that had we been in their position, in their shoes, and lived their lifestyle, our lives would have been probably even worse. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the surah the story of Musa alayhi salam, when he wanted to get and gain that knowledge. And the journey that he went through to gain that knowledge. And how he thought he was arrogant. I mean, in the beginning, Musa alayhi salam, had that knowledge, or had that the mentality that he knew everything. He asked the wise man the first time. He was like, why would you do something like this? And he said, wait, hold on. I told you, don't ask me. He did it the second time. And then he did it again the third time. And then once he came to find out what the meaning was, at that point it clicked. That light came on. He realized, like, oh yeah. And how many times have we gone through life trials? How many times have we gone through those issues and said, why? Ya Allah, why did you put me through that hardship? Why did I not get accepted in this university? Why did I not get that position? How come this business is not as successful and I end up doing something else? How come this marriage didn't work out, or this thing that I wanted didn't work out and now I have to do something completely different? We ask why, but who are we questioning? We're questioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're questioning one of the rules of faith. Believing in destiny. Believing in what we have. Believing in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had put for us to deal with. And then talks about the story of Dhul Qarnayn, and talks about how that person, because he was righteous, because he used the right knowledge, because he used the right talents and the skills from around him, he was able to build that bridge or that barrier. He didn't have everything. He said, okay, here's the problem that I'm faced with, and I need to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He used all the different resources. A unity of a community. He united that community. Those people who had the knowledge came together and thought about how can they fix the problem. The people that had the skills, the labor skills, came and did it. The people that had the material came and put all of those different things together. So where are we as a community? Can we unite and pull those resources to make our community one? We have the doctors, we have the engineers, we have the business owners, we have the labor, we have it all. What are we missing? Supposedly we have Islam that unites us all at one, but are we following Islam? Are we following that one element that unites us? And then last, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala concludes the surah by giving you what happens if you don't listen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the punishment, and where you're going to end up, and if you do good. If you do good, you have paradise. That is the place where you're going to stay. And look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you look at the surah, first he talked about the people of the Kahf, people that followed what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected them. And then talks about the story of the person or the guy that had that garden. And when he didn't listen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we saw what happened to him. Everything was destroyed for him. So at that point we realized that, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I need to follow the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts the story of Musa alayhi salam, when he didn't really follow direction right away. When he wanted to get that knowledge, when he wanted to get that guidance, but he kept just, pushing his luck, kind of asking too many questions where he wasn't supposed to. So that gives us the lesson that we need to stop and think. We need to stop and learn. And learn the proper way. And then gives us another example of what it really means to follow the proper rules. How can I be a good Muslim? How can I, be a good part of the community? How can I be good, to my family, to my friends, to my neighbors, to my relatives, to my co-workers? And then he tells you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you do good, this is what you have. You do bad, this is what you have. At the end of the day, it's your story. It's your choice. قولوا قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. Ask God forgiveness. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف خلق الله سيدنا محمد صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. Dear brothers and sisters, every day we make choices. The minute I wake up in the morning, I'm faced with a choice. I either pray Fajr or go back to sleep. I either pray Fajr or skip Fajr. I deal with my family. I either deal with them the right way or deal with them the wrong way. You leave your house or you continue on your daily activities, minute after minute, hour after hour. We all made a conscious choice to come to Friday prayer. We all made a conscious choice to come and pray at the masjid at 1:30. We left our places of employment. We left our businesses. We left our homes for one thing, to pray. So we made that one choice. Now we're going to leave. We're going to be done with Jum'ah. Some of us will go back to work, some of us will go back home, some of us will go back, go out with your children or do whatever it is that you're doing. And then you're going to be faced with another choice in probably another hour or so when Asr prayers come. And then we have what's in between. When you're driving, what choices we make. Next time we see somebody down the street who needs help, what approach we choose. I mean, the least we can do is just leave him be. Because you don't know if a month from now or a week from now you will be in that position. You will be in that situation. How many people who were well off, who had good education, who had good business, who had a good life, but then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put them through a trial and they failed. And now they are in a miserable position, in a miserable situation. So the next time you think that you have what you have is because of you, think again. The minute you think that you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's protection just because you deserve it, think again. The minute that you think that you came to the masjid because of who you are, because of how strong your iman is, think again. We have to be at a constant worry that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might choose to change us because we don't have the right intentions. We don't have the right intentions to be following the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't have the right intentions to be going that right way.